generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are doing our Shoot the Sheev for the month, which is talking about the latest Star Wars news. And we got a good handful today for you, so we're just going to go ahead and dive right into it. We're going to kick it off with the movies and shows category, where we talk about stuff from that. And as of lately, I think it was maybe a week or so ago, we got news that the writer for the new Rey film has quit. Long gone. A lot of people are kind of wondering, oh my goodness, does that mean that this movie is going to be put on hold? Is it going to be canceled? Does this indicate that other things are going on with the movie? And supposedly, Daisy Ridley did an interview for one of her other latest movies, and she did address this news. She said it's just part of the movie making world, and some writers just kind of come and go on different projects. And I mean, I've never been part of Hollywood, but I feel like I've never seen on major projects people come and go nearly as much as Star Wars has of late. Do you think it's canceled? Do you think it's going to be delayed? We've kind of heard whispers that it might come out in 2026, but something tells me it's going to be a little later.
Yeah, I don't pay attention enough to the writers of like really any of the movies or shows that we watch typically to know how normal this really is or isn't. But I wouldn't be surprised if it gets delayed because I feel like, or I thought the big focus was on the new Mandalorian type movie. I know it's not the Mandalorian, but you know that universe or that storyline, not necessarily the Rey storyline. So I could easily see them bumping this one back to focus on that one because we don't even have a release date for that, do we?
For which one? The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
That one's supposed to be 2026.
Yeah, see if that's 2026, I don't see Rey coming out till 2028. That's just how Star Wars seems to go is every other year.
Well, initially, so the plans that they've said for their future movie releases is that they want to have two a year, one in May, one in December. And so the idea was supposed to be that Mando would come out in May, and then this Rey film would come out in December around Christmas time. So one movie around Star Wars month, and then one during, the holidays. And I have full confidence that the Mandalorian and Grogu one is going to be on time. I mean, that one seems to be. I think I heard that they wrapped filming, but I could be wrong. I know they're at least doing well with what's going on there. But this Rey movie, I feel like Disney really wants it to be put out there. In my opinion, here's my stance on Rey. I love the character of Rey. I think Daisy Ridley did a great job with Rey, but I do think that the character was also written poorly. Some of the things weren't fully thought out in respect to the other parts of Star Wars lore. So I'm on board to see this Rey film. I want to see maybe some sort of correction where now they're going to be paying more attention and making Rey a more, in my opinion, believable character for different aspects. But uh, I'm excited about a Rey film because I want to see Daisy Ridley back in action for Star Wars. So I think Disney really wants it too because there's really, in my opinion, two major things that Disney has made for Star Wars. One, sequel trilogy content, and two, the High Republic content, which we just got the Acolyte, and that's kind of a sore subject at the moment for a lot of people. But with that being said, I do think that the Ray movie is definitely going to stick around. I mean, Daisy Ridley is already on board with it. I think it's just a matter of finding somebody to fill in that role as the writer. What I would be curious to find out is why did the writer quit? Because we've also heard that Disney has had a lot of creative freedom issues with the writing. I think that's one of the reasons why they cut Colin Trevorrow from finishing off the sequel trilogy, which his if you go in and you see what he wrote for that film, there's a lot of good things in there. So the Disney has their own agenda with their plots too. So um,
I'm gonna go back to what you said about timing. If that Mandalorian movie has wrapped filming or is, progressed a decent amount in the filming process right now, and the Rey one was only supposed to come out like 6 months after that, we should really have the story pretty much done and be starting to film, wouldn't you think? And here we are with not even a full story.
you would think.
It doesn't seem very likely that that's going to stay on track then.
Something tells me that Disney has kind of like an overall idea of what they want to happen with it, but they haven't found somebody to write it in a way that probably conveys their own messages that they want to send with the film, which would be going down the wrong path of what's going on with Star Wars and even some of the Disney properties in general. Remember, Bob Iger came out and said the studio is focusing way too much on message and not enough on on story. So um, my hope is just that maybe they're gonna find a writer that is willing to write closer to the Star Wars side of things and not so much towards like a political agenda side of things. Um,
I mean, that would be my hope too.
but at the same time, we know who gets the final say. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see about that. Something that I'm excited about, maybe Sarah, not as much, just because you don't really collect this stuff, but um, I can't remember if it was a year or 2 years ago, but not too long ago, there was a physical release of Mandalorian season one and season two, and then there was also two Marvel projects. I want to say it was Loki and um, the Captain America show. Don't quote me on the second one. Definitely Loki. I don't remember what the second one was. But Disney has announced that on Thursday, so Halloween, there will be pre-orders available for Mandalorian season 3 and Ahsoka season 1 to be on physical release. Why do I get excited about that? Because I want to have a physical copy of all Star Wars projects if I can, just because that way I can preserve it a bit more for myself, and it's cool to see on the shelf. But something else that's cool about these releases, and it's mirroring exactly what happened with the other releases as well, is that they'll be in really, really fancy steelbook cases. Um, One thing that I don't think that these will have, and they didn't have in the previous releases either, there won't be digital copies, but what you will get is the complete season and behind the scenes content on those discs. So I'm looking forward to those.
I really wonder sometimes with these types of releases if there's any part of them that thinks that they might pull something from Disney Plus. It seems crazy to think that they would pull one of these major Star Wars shows, but they have had a habit of pulling random shows and whatnot from Disney Plus just in general. I remember what is it, The World According to Jeff Goldblum, that was one of them. There was what was the other one with Warwick Davis?
Willow.
Willow got pulled. So, you think of things like, and I'm going to use The Acolyte as an example because I feel like that was one of their projects most recently in the Star Wars realm that was received very poorly. Not that Willow and the Jeff Goldblum show were, I'm not trying to say that those were trash like this. I'm just, for example, because those got pulled. It makes me wonder if there's any inclination of those types of shows being pulled. And I don't know. Maybe I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole because that's not one of them that you said is getting a physical release, but it's another reason, I guess, to get a copy of that media because what if it does get pulled?
I don't know. There's definitely some projects that I don't think will be pulled. Um, being, like the Mandalorian show, I don't think that'll ever go away. But one of the things that does worry people, like you said, Willow, that's a huge one because that was made specifically for Disney Plus. But there's even I understand why some of these things are being pulled. So, like for instance, Disney has the rights to the latest Indiana Jones film, and for the longest time, they had the other indie movies on their platform as well. But then they don't own supposedly the first four of those films; somebody else does. So they lost the streaming rights to be on Disney Plus, so then that's why it gets pulled. But with this content that they're making specifically themselves, I don't understand why that content would be pulled. But like you said, we've seen it with Willow. So like when I heard that news that it was pulled, I was like, "There's no way." And I went in there, sure enough, gone. So scary stuff. It does make me wonder if eventually, if they continue this trend of physical releases, are they going to eventually put the Acolyte out on physical release? Because what's interesting about that is there's been a lot of, when the show first kind of tanked, at the very end with positivity, I would say. Uh, it was crazy to see the Acolyte products from the Disney store just vanish. And then that made people wonder, is this going to be a tax write-off type thing? And then, people were worried about the show being dropped from Disney Plus, and it has not, as far as I know, but with what happened to Willow, that's why people were thinking about that. So my hope is we get a physical release of any Star Wars project, especially those that pertain to, the main story. So like the Grogu artwork short that's on Disney Plus, don't really need a release for that. But, these things that are seasons long, well, yeah, I want that stuff. I want to be able to pop in a disc if my internet goes out or something. Or
You know
if
what we
it's
need a physical release of is all the Lego Star Wars shorts or short films or whatever, all of those. I need a physical release of those. That'd be fun.
there's some, but definitely not all. I wish there was more of them. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in this show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours. Let's see. We'll shift gears to a short piece here on the board games realm. Not a whole lot going in board games itself, but card games. We've been talking on here month to month about the new Star Wars card game called Star Wars Unlimited. There is a new set coming out that is called The Twilight of the Republic. I feel like we just talked about a new set not too long ago, being the like Mandalorian stuff. But this is a set that will be centered around the Clone Wars era. The starter decks will have Ahsoka and General Grievous headlining those decks. So if you buy the starter deck, that I think it comes with both, you'll have a deck most likely with all the good guys in it behind Ahsoka, and then a deck with probably separatist droids and whatnot in General Grievous's deck. So still haven't played the game. We haven't bought any of the cards. I do think it's an interesting looking game, but it's probably right around the same idea as Lorcana. So Lorcana, we collect the cards. Truthfully, myself and Sarah are the only people in our friend group that even knows how to play. So, well, I take that back. Maybe our friend Cameron knows. I think we hung out one time and I taught him briefly, but we don't play it Hardly ever. I don't remember the last time we played it. But, and also the cards come out so frequent, it's hard for us to keep up with all the cards, with our busy lives. So, I don't know. I would like to, but it's one of those things where I gotta, have a cutoff somewhere.
I bet you if the Star Wars game came out before Lorcana, we would have jumped on that ship instead. But Lorcana beat him to the punch, and so it's just you can't buy everything.
Yeah, that's probably pretty fair. Um, we did try a Star Wars card game back when it was when Star Wars Destiny was popular. Unfortunately, that game ended pretty quickly. If I put my opinion out there, how fast that happened, but I don't know. The idea of playing a Star Wars trading card game scares me because I know how many of them they've gone through. So I don't want to get on board, be all excited about it, and then 1 or 2 years later it gets canceled. That's terrifying to me. Whereas I know Lorcana from the company itself, they have said that they have a 10-year plan with that game. So that's why we, jumped in and invested. But my goodness, 10-year plan, if you think about it, they're doing 4 releases a year, 40 different sets by that time. Holy moly.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So that's all the stuff I got there for the board game section. The video game section is also pretty small. I mean, yes, we've had some different things talked about with Star Wars Outlaws. I feel like that game has pretty much been moved on by a lot of the media. I don't hear anything about that game anymore, even though it just came out. But one little piece of information that we did get that is news is that there is another new Star Wars game being brought back from years ago when we were children, from the PlayStation 1 Dreamcast era, and that is Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. Uh, I played this on the Game Boy Advance, which was similar but definitely not the same as playing on the PlayStation or Dreamcast. But I did a video already on it, talking about, the nitty-gritty of what's going on. But if you aren't familiar with what the game is essentially the Phantom Menace, but a different game that isn't called the Phantom Menace. Because when that movie came out, there was two games that came out that followed the movie, which was very strange. There was the official game, and then there was this one, Jedi Power Battles. And you get to, choose which Jedi you want to play as. I believe there's Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, and I think Adi Gallia as well. And then if you play through the game, you can unlock Darth Maul. And I think they added a couple others too for this release, just to, spice it up a little bit more. It is coming out on January 23rd, so a little bit of time between now and then. But if you are a PlayStation Plus subscriber, you can get 10% off the game if you pre-order it. So right now, if you go in there as a member of PlayStation Plus, you should be able to purchase it for $17.99. So pretty darn cheap. That's relatively close to probably what you'd pay for if you were to go to your local retro game store and try to purchase it. So I want to try it out because this is one of those games where I really didn't get to play it hardly as a kid. I don't even remember. I don't even know if I have played this game. I know I played the other one, like the official Phantom Menace game, but this one, I don't think I've played it. Did you play any early Star Wars games?
I think the only one I had played was the original Battlefront or Battlefront 2, one of the two. I never remember which one, but it was one of the original Battlefront games. Any other Star Wars games I just never played.
Gotcha. Yeah, this was back there a little ways. 'Cause like I said, PS1 era. So yeah, look forward to that. Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of the Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one. So please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. What takes up the majority, I would say, of our news segment today is there was a lot of books that were announced recently. I believe it was at Comic-Con. And there's also some Black Series figures that were announced too. So we're going to talk about the Black Series figures really quick, and then we'll get into the details about the books because there are some interesting ones out there, even one that I would even jump out there to read. So here we go. So Black Series figures, ones that have been announced. Savage Opress, excited. However, they are very expensive, so that's why we haven't had nearly as many as we used to. Sebulba, very exciting.
That would
Master
be a fun one.
Master Luminara, pretty cool. Shakti, haven't seen her in a while. And probably my favorite from the group, Prince Shizor from Shadows of the Empire. If you do not know who this guy is, he is a big baddie. Way back when there was a book release called Shadows of the Empire, and this book was so popular when it came out. It literally had everything except for the movie. So this book came out, you had action figures, you had a video game that was a Nintendo exclusive for for quite some time. Like it was like a first party, and then I think it came out on PC a little later. Um, there was a soundtrack and comic books, you name it. They put everything out there except for a movie. And this dude is so bad. I mean, the his role in the book is basically I want to get close to the Emperor, so I'm gonna mess with Darth Vader. So this is like the one person in the galaxy that is willing to stick his finger in Vader's mask. So I think he's a pretty cool character. Uh, Definitely check out that book if you haven't, or the video game. The video game is a fun playthrough. At times, it's a little hard to know what to do because there are some sections that are very dark. And back when during that era, dark areas were very hard to see. So lighting is a little bit of an issue.
What is it called again? Not the character, but the game or the book?
Shadows of the Empire. I believe it takes place. It starts during Empire Strikes Back, and then it kind of fills the gap between then and Return of the Jedi because you start off on Hoth and you play through the Battle of Hoth, and there is this character, his name escapes me, but maybe it'll come to me while I'm talking. Um, there's this other character that is there, and he is kind of like almost like he could be brothers with Han Solo. He's that dude that's just kind of like a I don't think he's a smuggler per se, but he has a charisma about him. He also is very smart mouthy, thinks big of himself, and he basically parts ways. Like he goes to do a separate thing on his own for a little bit, and then meets up with Luke and all of them once he finds out that they need help recovering Han Solo and Carbonite.
Hmm.
See if I can look up. Of course, as I'm typing it in, and no, I did not see the name, I remembered the name. Dash Rendar, that's his name. He also has the other, in my opinion, iconic Corellian ship. How is that significant? Han Solo's ship is from Corellia, and so is this other one. Dash Rendar is, like I said, very, very similar to Han Solo. Um, so yeah, it's a really good game. I recommend it. So check it out.
Nice.
All right, so books. If you're into books, boy, we got a lot to tell you today. So, graphic novels and comic books. There was a handful of new graphic novels that were announced. One of them including a graphic novel about General Grievous, one of them about Mace Windu, and they take place in the Hyperspace Stories series. I have not read this series, but from what I gather, it's probably kind of like a anthology type series where they just focus on a different character in each of their books. Let's see. One that I think is exciting. There's going to be a new Poe Dameron miniseries. that focuses on events leading up to The Force Awakens. So we kind of get to see him before, before we met him in The Force Awakens. I would definitely like to know what he was up to, him and BB-8.
It's like
I
the
know,
Andor show, but for Poe Dameron and not a TV show.
basically, I would, I'm sorry to say, but I would much rather see a show about Poe Dameron than Andor. Um, there's
I
also
liked Cassian. I'm just not a big fan of the show that he's in, mainly because he's not in the majority of it.
I like I I like Andor, but I don't like him enough to have a show about him. You know what I mean?
I mean, I hear you.
Trying to think of like other characters that I would feel that way about, but at the same time, there's so many of them that I'm like, you know what, that could be interesting. So I don't know.
I, I feel like there was an opportunity, but so little of the show that is named after him is actually about him that it wasn't it sounds like the Poe Dameron one might be actually about Poe Dameron, and that'd be nice.
I feel like the Andor show, he was more of a vessel through what we were supposed to be seeing that was going on in the galaxy at that time. But
Maybe we'll see him more in season two. One can only hope.
I think season two will be better, especially with all the other people that are getting involved. But back to the comic books. So there's also a handful of High Republic books coming out, or comic books. Makes sense because Disney really wants to hit home that High Republic series because that is one of their, areas that they've created. There's also going to be a Vader's Castle, the Deluxe Library Collection. I don't know a whole lot about the collection itself. Something tells me it's probably going to be a good chunk, if not all of the Vader's Castle stories in it. What I do know is that Vader's Castle it's kind of like a Star Wars horror comic book series where it's more scary stories in the Star Wars world, and then what Vader's castle has to do with it, I'm not too sure because I have not read any of them. The one that I'm the most excited about, which is in the comic book realm, is there is going to be a new Kylo Ren series coming out called Legacy of Vader. The first one comes out on February 5th, and it is set between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. It says we will see Kylo Ren visit Vader's castle and also Tatooine in an effort to learn more about his family's past. So, my question to Disney is, why are the cool sounding projects getting comic books and not shows? I want to see more Kylo Ren. I could give crap less about a season two of The Acolyte right now.
You know, I just don't even have words. It seems like every time we want something, that's just not what we end up getting, and you just gotta put up with, here's what it is. I figured it out, okay?
They can sell you more comic books.
There's no hidden agenda in that one, so it gets a comic book.
That might be true. I don't know. I'd have to read it. It it makes me interested because I care about that character. And so I hope maybe someday, maybe when the whole series is out, because just like people like to binge watch shows on TV, I like to binge the comic books in a series. So I'll sit down and flip through those like crazy once I have the whole story in front of me. So um, I'll have to follow up on that one because that one definitely has my interest. And also, speaking of trying to sell you more things, and also really trying to hit home on that High Republic. There is a handful of new High Republic novels that were announced, one of which follows an adventure with Jecki and Yord. So definitely takes place before the Acolyte show, if we think about it. Um, but I feel like the people that really love the Acolyte characters, this is kind of where you're going to have to go, at least for now. I heard of this book is one that was recently announced. I've also heard of another book that follows, was it Vernestra was her name?
I think so.
The girl with the whip. There's a
Yep.
book following her that's coming out.
And you'll
And
actually get to see the whip in action.
it's a book.
Oh, I thought we were still on comic books. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, these ones are novels. And was the Wookiee Kalnaka? That was his name, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a story coming out with him as well. So,
And these are all separate?
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
the Jackie and Yord is an adventure on their own, like together.
Right.
But there's a lot of that's a book. The Vernestra thing is a book. The Kalnaka thing is a separate book. So, like I said, they know you like it. They want you to buy it, not just pay what, $10 a month to watch a show.
It makes me wonder if they chose those characters because those are the ones that fans actually liked, as opposed to the twins. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
the twins didn't get received very well, but at the same time, we're so shortly after that season, that show, it's not that many months later that it either they had a book planned for the twins and it got canceled, or I don't know. It's weird that there's not one about the twins.
I want one about Chimere.
That would be cool.
'Cause I mean, that's if I had to pick a character I cared about in that show, it's definitely Chimere.
Yeah.
He was in my opinion, he was the most believable and, focused character
Yeah.
in the show. Um, but yeah,
Because
that is
if you think about the twins, you could kind of argue, well, we already saw their backstory because that's in the show. But then at the same time, how did the Jedi training go and the failing of that? Like that in itself could be a story.
right. And Disney is probably very aware of that and want to sell it in book form at some point.
Yeah.
So if you're a book reader, lots of things to be excited about. If I were to pick one, I probably would be going more towards the Kylo Ren comic book series. I don't believe that's not a graphic novel. Maybe at some point, once all the books are out, they'll come out with a graphic novel of it. But as of right now, they're going to be kicking off that series early next year.
Nice.
So that is our Shoot the Sheev news for the month. We try to do this at least once a month, sometimes twice if we have something to talk about in the Star Wars world. And they're typically towards the end. That way we can talk about the news that happened, just like we did today. So if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drops a like if you like the video and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on the news that we covered today. And if there's one that you feel is exciting that we didn't mention, feel free to drop it in the comments. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.